Seo Yuna stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of her father's former office, the Han River below moving like it had somewhere to be. The pen in her hand cost more than most people earned in a month. The document she had just signed transferred control of 18 corporations, 7 properties, and 43 shell accounts. None of it felt like hers. Behind her, the lawyer cleared his throat. The Haho property wasn't included in the primary estate. It's separate. Yuna did not turn. Separate how? Registered under a different name. Transferred 9 years ago. She set the pen down. To whom? The lawyer hesitated. The name doesn't match any known associate. For the first time in 6 weeks, 6 weeks since the funeral that wasn't called a funeral, Yuna felt something other than procedural emptiness. Curiosity. Or perhaps obligation. She left Seoul 3 days later, alone, in a car too expensive for the roads it would travel. The car did not stop in front of the house. It slowed, then rolled past. Seo Yuna watched the tiled roof slide out of frame, her reflection faint in the tinted glass. She did not ask the driver to turn back. He circled the narrow road once, twice, before finally pulling over near a persimmon tree bent by age and wind. The village of Haho, tucked deep into North Gyeongsang province, had not changed in ways that mattered. The river still curved like a held breath. The houses still sat low, respectful, as if they knew better than to draw attention. The house at the end of the road, her father's house, stood darker than the others. Not abandoned. Waiting. Yuna stepped out, heels sinking slightly into soil that had not felt shoes like hers in years. She wore black, not as a signal of grief but of habit. In Seoul, black was invisible. Here, it announced her. A woman sat on a low stool by the gate. Small. Wrapped in layers. Hair fully white, skin darkened by decades of sun and labor. She held a broom but was not sweeping. She was watching. Yuna walked closer. The gate was shut. I own this property, Yuna said, not raising her voice. It's under my name now. The woman did not answer. Yuna reached for the latch. The broom tapped the ground once. A sound dry enough to stop the hand mid-air. You should go back to Seoul, the woman said. Her voice was calm, uneven, like something that had learned patience the hard way. This house is not empty. Yuna withdrew her hand. She did not ask who the woman was. Questions gave people room. I'm restoring it, Yuna said. Then I'll leave. The woman's gaze moved, not to Yuna's face, but to her wrist. The watch was expensive. Too expensive. You don't restore a house like this, the woman said. You wake it. Behind them, the river moved without sound. Yuna smiled politely. The kind that had ended negotiations and funerals alike. I'll manage. The woman did not move from the gate. That night, Yuna stayed at a Hanok guest house across the village. She lay awake, listening to wood settle, and distant dogs argue over nothing. Her phone buzzed twice. Numbers she did not recognize. She ignored them. At dawn, she returned with a folder of documents. The deed. The transfer papers. Proof organized in the way her father had taught her. Silent and absolute. The woman was already at the gate. Yuna held up the papers. These are legal. Registered. Witnessed. The woman glanced at them without interest. Paper doesn't unlock what refuses to open. Yuna folded the documents carefully. She walked back to the car. The driver looked at her in the rearview mirror. Miss Seo. Find me workers, she said. From and on. Men who won't ask questions. By afternoon, 3 men arrived in a truck that had seen better roads. They unloaded tools quietly, efficiently. One of them paused when he saw the woman still at the gate. She was here this morning, he muttered. The woman stood with the broom. You were told, she said. This house doesn't accept strangers. Yuna stepped forward. Have you been paid to guard this place? The woman shook her head once. I was left something else. The workers looked at Yuna. She nodded. They began anyway. The first hour passed without incident. The workers pried open shutters, tested beams, swept decades of silence into corners. They worked with the efficiency of men who had learned not to linger. The woman did not enter. She remained at the gate, broom upright like a sentry. Yuna stood in the courtyard, reviewing a list she had prepared in Seoul. Structural repairs. Electrical updates. Roof inspection. Items that could be quantified, budgeted, and completed. One of the workers approached. The foundation is solid. Whoever built this knew what they were doing. Yuna nodded. How long? 2 weeks. Maybe 3. You have 1. The man did not argue. By midday, Yuna attempted a different strategy. She walked to the gate with an envelope. Cash. Enough to buy silence or gratitude, whichever came easier. The woman did not look at it. You've been taking care of this place, Yuna said. I'm offering compensation. The woman's gaze remained steady. I don't take payment for what was never a job. Yuna set the envelope on the stone wall. Then consider it a gift. The woman did not touch it. That evening, the envelope was gone. Not taken. Burned. A small pile of ash marked the spot where it had been placed. The workers left before dusk. One of them mentioned the woman had not moved all day. Not for water. Not for rest. Yuna locked the courtyard gate from the inside and returned to the guest house. The village at night was quieter than Seoul ever allowed. No traffic. No sirens. Just wind through tile and the occasional creak of wood, remembering its age. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered without speaking. A voice, male, formal, came through. You should not be there alone. Yuna ended the call. It rang again. This time, she let it go to silence. The next morning, she found the woman seated in the same position. As if she had not left. As if the night had simply passed around her. Yuna approached slowly. Do you live here? The woman tilted her head slightly. I live where the house allows. That's not an answer. It's the only one you'll get. Yuna studied the woman. No hostility. No fear. Just presence. The village doesn't interfere, Yuna said. Why? The woman's expression did not change. Because they remember what happens when people forget their place. A truck pulled up behind them. Supplies from Andong. Timber, tools, and cement mix. The workers returned, slower this time, glancing at the woman before unloading. Yuna signed for the delivery and turned to the woman. You can't stop this. The woman stood. For the first time, she stepped away from the gate. Not toward Yuna. Toward the house. She placed one hand on the wooden frame of the door. The gesture was not possessive. It was intimate. This house does not belong to you, the woman said. It never did. Yuna felt something shift. Not anger. Not confusion. Recognition of a pattern she had seen before. In Seoul, power was always contested. Ownership was always questioned. Control was always temporary. But this was different. This was a refusal without escalation. The workers began again. The woman returned to her seat. And Yuna, for the first time in years, did not know what move to make next. That night, another call came. This time, she answered immediately. The same voice. The house should be sold. Or left alone. Yuna kept her tone even. Who is this? A pause. Someone who remembers. The line went dead. She did not sleep. At dawn, she stood at the window of the guest house, watching smoke rise from a distant chimney. The village is waking. Life continued as if her presence changed nothing. Except it did. Somewhere, someone was watching. And the woman at the gate had not moved. The floorboards split cleanly. Too cleanly. One of the workers knelt in the main room, prying loose a panel that had resisted their earlier attempts. The wood came away without splinters, as if it had been designed to be removed. Beneath it was not rot or dust. A metal box. Sealed. Wrapped carefully in oiled cloth that had kept moisture at bay for years, perhaps decades. The worker looked up at Yuna. Should I leave it? The man stood and stepped back. Yuna crouched. She did not touch the box immediately. She studied it. The cloth was folded with precision. The seal is intact. This had been placed deliberately, not hidden in panic. From the gate, the woman's voice cut through. So he didn't take it. Yuna turned sharply. The woman had not entered the courtyard. She stood just beyond the threshold, broom in hand, eyes fixed on the box. You knew this was here, Yuna said. The woman did not deny it. I knew he kept things he shouldn't have. Yuna lifted the box carefully. It was heavier than it looked. She carried it to the courtyard table and set it down under the persimmon tree. The workers watched. The woman watched. Yuna unwrapped the cloth. The box was unmarked. No lock. Just a latch that opened with a soft click. Inside, ledgers. 3 of them. Bound in leather, pages yellowed but intact. Handwriting she recognized instantly. Her father's. Dense. Methodical. Numbers aligned in columns. Names written in Hangul and Hanja, some crossed out, some circled. Dates spanning decades. This was not money. It was accounting. Yuna opened the first ledger. The earliest entry was from 1987. A name. A location. A sum. Then a second entry beneath it. Same name, different amount, marked with a red line. She flipped through the pages. Hundreds of entries. Patterns emerging. Debts recorded. Payments tracked. But not all entries had corresponding payments. Some were marked with a single character. Pending. Others. Impossible. The woman stepped closer. Not into the courtyard. Just to the edge. He never threw anything away, she said. Even what he couldn't finish. Yuna looked up. You knew my father. The woman's gaze did not waver. I knew the man before the name. Yuna closed the ledger carefully. What does that mean? It means he built what you see. But he started as something else. One of the workers cleared his throat. Miss Seo, should we continue? Yuna nodded without looking away from the woman. Take the rest of the day. Come back tomorrow. The men left quickly. The courtyard fell silent. Yuna opened the second ledger. More names. More numbers. But these entries were different. No monetary amounts. Instead, addresses. Dates of birth. Family connections. This was not business. This was surveillance. The woman spoke again. He kept records because he believed memory was not enough. Yuna turned a page. A name caught her attention. She recognized it. A politician who had died in a car accident 12 years ago. Beneath his name, a list of properties. Bank accounts. A notation in the margin. Settled. She closed the ledger. These are confessions. The woman shook her head. These are obligations he never resolved. Yuna stood. She walked to the gate, the ledger in her hand. Why did he keep this here? Why not destroy it? The woman met her eyes. Because destroying it would have meant forgetting. And your father never forgot anything. That evening, Yuna carried the box to the guest house. She locked the door and spread the ledgers across the low table. The third ledger was different. No names. No addresses. Just dates. And beneath each date, a single line of text. Sometimes a question. Sometimes a statement. One entry stopped her. April 14th, 1999. If I am found, will she understand why I stayed hidden? Another. September 3rd, 2003. The house holds what I cannot carry. And near the end. January 12th, 2016. Moon Okeja refuses payment. She knows more than she says. Yuna read the name again. Moon Okeja. The woman at the gate. Her father had written about her. Trusted her. Left her unnamed in legal documents but recorded in private. Yuna closed the ledger and stared at the ceiling. The house was not just property. It was a vault. And the woman guarding it was not an obstacle. She was a key. The black sedan arrived without warning. Too clean for the village roads. Too quiet for its size. It parked near the persimmon tree, engine idling for a moment before cutting off. Two men stepped out. Both wore suits that fit too well. Neither carried visible weapons. Neither needed to. Yuna stood in the courtyard, ledger in hand. She had returned to the house at dawn, ignoring the woman at the gate, determined to finish cataloging the entries. Now she set the ledger down slowly. The men approached. The first was older, with silver hair combed back, hands clasped behind him. The second was younger, sharper, eyes that scanned the courtyard before settling on Yuna. "Miss Seo," the older man said. His voice was polite. "Empty. You've been difficult to reach." Yuna did not move toward them. "I didn't know I was expected to answer." The man smiled faintly. "Your father kept channels open. We assumed you would continue the practice." "My father is dead." "Exactly." The younger man spoke now. Clipped. Direct. "Which is why you should not be here alone." Yuna glanced at the gate. The woman was watching. Silent. Broom upright. "I'm not alone," Yuna said. The older man followed her gaze. He studied the woman for a long moment. "She's been here for years. Longer than most remember." "Do you know her?" "We know what she represents." Yuna crossed her arms. "And what is that?" The younger man stepped forward. "Unfinished business." The older man raised a hand slightly. The younger man stopped. "Soul is safer," the older man said. "The city has structure. Rules. This place." He gestured at the house. "This place has memory. Memory is dangerous." Yuna's phone buzzed in her pocket. She ignored it. "I'm restoring the property," she said. "Then it will be sold." The older man's expression did not change. "Your father owed people. Not money. Something harder to repay." "What people?" "The kind who don't send invoices." The younger man's gaze shifted to the table where the ledger sat. He took a step toward it. Yuna moved between him and the table. "This is private property." The man stopped. "Everything your father touched is still watched." The older man placed a hand on the younger man's shoulder. "We're not here to take anything. We're here to remind you that certain doors should stay closed." Yuna held his gaze. "I didn't open them. He did. And now you're living in the room he built." The men turned without waiting for a response. They walked back to the sedan, movements unhurried, deliberate. The car started smoothly and pulled away, leaving no dust, no trace except the weight of their presence. The woman at the gate spoke. "They'll come back." Yuna turned. "You know them." "I know what they want." "Which is?" The woman tilted her head slightly. "The same thing everyone wants from a dead man. Proof he was never as powerful as they feared." That night, Yuna could not sleep. She sat at the guesthouse table, the third ledger open in front of her. She tore out a single page, an entry from 2008, a name she did not recognize, a notation she could not decipher. She carried it outside and burned it in a small metal dish. The paper curled, blackened, and turned to ash. She returned to the guesthouse and locked the door. At dawn, she returned to the house. The page was there. On the courtyard table. Unburned. Edges clean. As if it had never been touched by flame. Yuna picked it up slowly. The handwriting was identical. The date remains unchanged. She looked at the gate. The woman was gone. Yuna walked through the house, checking each room. Empty. Undisturbed. She returned to the courtyard and set the page back in the ledger. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. Silence on the other end. Not empty. Listening. Yuna spoke first. "I'm not leaving." A pause. Then you'll learn what he couldn't finish. The line went dead. Yuna stood in the courtyard as the sun rose over the river. The village woke around her. Smoke from chimneys. Distant voices. Life continuing. But something had shifted. The house was no longer waiting. It was responding. The frame on the wall had been straight yesterday. Now it tilted. Not enough to fall. Just enough to notice. Yuna stood in the far room, the one the workers had avoided without being told to. The air here felt different. Cooler. The light from the window did not reach the corners. She approached the frame slowly. A faded photograph inside, black and white, faces she did not recognize. A group standing in front of the house. Younger. Smiling in the way people did when cameras were rare. She lifted the frame from the wall. Behind it, the wallpaper had been cut. A straight line. Deliberate. She pressed against the wall. It gave slightly. A door. Narrow. Hidden. Designed to disappear unless you knew where to look. Yuna pushed. The door opened inward, revealing darkness and the smell of earth. Stairs descended. She pulled out her phone, turned on the flashlight, and stepped down. The staircase was steep. Wooden. Each step creaked under her weight but held firm. 12 steps. Then solid ground. The room below was smaller than she expected. No windows. Walls lined with shelves. And on those shelves, objects. Watches. Rings. Hairpins. A fountain pen. A pair of reading glasses. A child's shoe, small and worn. Each item sat alone. Each was labeled. Yuna stepped closer. The labels were handwritten. Dates. Locations. Names she did not recognize. She picked up a watch. Gold. Expensive once. The label read, June 1991, Busan, Park Minsuk. She set it down and moved to the next shelf. A jade bracelet. March 1998, Incheon, Choi Sun-hee. A pair of cufflinks. October 2002, Daegu, Han Jae-woo. The room was not a storage space. It was a collection. But not of theft. Of memory. Footsteps sounded above. Slow. Deliberate. Yuna turned. The woman descended the stairs, broom left behind, hands empty. You found it, the woman said. Yuna gestured at the shelves. What is this? The woman stepped into the room. She moved between the shelves with familiarity, not touching but acknowledging. Your father never kept what he took, the woman said. Only what he couldn't return. Return to whom? The people who didn't survive to claim them. Yuna felt something cold settle in her chest. These belonged to people who crossed lines, who owed debts they couldn't pay, who disappeared when disappearing was the only option left. Yuna picked up the child's shoe. The label was different. No name. Just a date. August 15th, 1994. Why keep them? She asked. The woman looked at her directly. Because forgetting would have been easier. And your father did not choose easily. Yuna set the shoe down carefully. He killed these people. The woman shook her head. Not all of them. Some he protected. Some he hid. Some he moved before others could find them. She paused. And some he couldn't save. Yuna walked along the shelves. Dozens of items. Decades of accumulation. This is a confession, she said. It's a ledger that doesn't balance. Yuna turned. Why didn't you tell me? The woman's expression remained calm. You weren't ready to see who your father protected. Protected from what? From people like the ones who visited yesterday. Yuna leaned against the shelf. The weight of the room pressed down. Not physical. Historical. How long have you known about this? Yuna asked. Since he built it. And you stayed. The woman nodded once. Someone had to remember. Yuna climbed the stairs slowly. The woman followed. They emerged into the daylight, and Yuna locked the hidden door behind them. She hung the frame back on the wall. Straight this time. These people, Yuna said. Their families. Do they know? Some do. Some suspect. Most have moved on. And the ones who haven't? The woman walked to the gate. They're the reason this house will never be empty. That evening, Yuna returned to the guest house and opened the ledgers again. She cross-referenced names from the shelves with entries in the records. Some matched. Others did not. The ones that did not match troubled her more. Because those names were still pending. Still impossible. Still unfinished. Her phone buzzed. A message this time. No number. The house remembers more than you do. Yuna deleted it. It appeared again immediately. Same message. Word for word. She turned off the phone. At dawn, she found the woman at the gate. I need to know something, Yuna said. The woman waited. Did he build this to protect them, or himself? The woman considered the question. Both. He believed guilt could be organized. That if he catalogued what he couldn't undo, it would count as penance. Did it? The woman looked at the house. The house is still standing. You can answer that yourself. The drums started at dusk. Low. Rhythmic. Not a celebration. Ceremony. Yuna stood on the guesthouse porch, watching smoke rise from the village center. Figures moved between houses, carrying offerings. Rice. Fruit. Incense is bundled in careful arrangements. A jessa. Memorial rites for the dead. She had not been invited. Had not expected to be. But the woman was there. Yuna could see her across the distance, kneeling at a table that did not belong to her family. White cloth draped over wooden boards. Photographs of the deceased are arranged with precision. The woman was arranging offerings. For strangers. Yuna walked closer, staying at the edge of the gathering. Villagers moved around her without acknowledgement. Not hostile. Simply occupied with ritual. An older man in traditional hanbok poured soju into small cups. A younger woman lit incense. Children sat quietly on the periphery, watching with the patience taught through repetition. The woman did not look up. She placed a bowl of rice on the table. Then fruit. The folded paper was cut into shapes Yuna did not recognize. The ceremony continued without her. Yuna waited until the drums quieted. Until the villagers dispersed back to their homes, leaving offerings to burn down in their own time. Only then did the woman stand. Yuna approached. You host rituals for the dead. The woman began folding the white cloth. For the ones no one names. These aren't your ancestors. They are now. Yuna watched as the woman packed away the remnants. Careful. Respectful. As if each gesture mattered beyond performance. The house served a purpose here, the woman said without being asked. People came when they had nowhere else to go. Your father made arrangements. Some left. Some stayed. Some were never seen again. And the village knew. The village survived by knowing when not to see. Yuna looked around. Houses dark now. Windows shuttered. The kind of silence that comes from practice. They protect you, Yuna said. The woman shook her head. They protect the balance. I'm just part of it. A phone rang. Not Yuna's. The woman's. She pulled an old flip phone from her pocket. Looked at the screen. Did not answer. It stopped ringing. Seoul. Yuna asked. Busan. Incheon. Daegu. They call from everywhere. The woman pocketed the phone. They want to know if the house is still closed. What do you tell them? Nothing. Silence is the only answer they trust. Yuna walked back toward the guesthouse. The woman fell into step beside her. How long have you lived here? Yuna asked. 37 years. And before that? The woman smiled faintly. Before that, I was somewhere else. They reached the guesthouse gate. Yuna stopped. You're not from here. The village. Korea. No. Then why stay? The woman looked back toward the memorial site. The smoke had thinned but not disappeared. Because leaving would mean no one remembers correctly. That night, Yuna's phone rang again. This time, a voice she recognized. A board member from one of her father's companies. Polite. Insistent. The transition needs your signature. Several documents are pending. Yuna sat at the low table, ledgers stacked to one side. Send them digitally. Some require in-person verification. Then they'll wait. A pause. Miss Seo, your prolonged absence is creating uncertainty. Good. She ended the call. Within an hour, 3 more calls came. Different numbers. Same message underneath the formality. Come back. Resume control. Stop disturbing what has settled. She turned off the phone entirely. At dawn, she returned to the house. The workers had not yet arrived. The gate stood open. The woman was inside the courtyard. Not sitting. Standing at the main door, hand pressed against the wood. Yuna approached slowly. What are you doing? The woman did not turn. Listening. To what? What the house is trying to say. Yuna waited. The woman's hand remained on the door. Minutes passed. Finally, the woman stepped back. Someone is coming. Not today. Soon. Who? People who remember what your father promised. The workers arrived. They unloaded materials and began repairs on the eastern wall. The woman returned to her post at the gate. Yuna spent the morning in the hidden room below. She catalogued each item, photographed each label, cross-referenced with the ledgers. Patterns emerged. Items from Busan clustered in the early 90s. Incheon in the late 90s. Seoul and Daegu throughout the 2000s. Her father had not operated from one location. He had moved, followed opportunities, or fled consequences. And in each place, he had left something behind. By afternoon, Yuna climbed back upstairs. She found the woman in the courtyard, sweeping. Actually sweeping this time. The village protects you, Yuna said. But why do you protect the house? The woman continued sweeping. Because someone has to stand between what was done and what people want to believe was done. That's not an answer. The woman stopped. Looked at Yuna directly. Your father gave me a choice 37 years ago. I could leave with money and forget. Or I could stay with nothing and remember. I chose memory. Why? Because money runs out. Memory compounds. That evening, as Yuna prepared to leave for the guest house, the woman spoke again. They'll offer you the same choice soon. Yuna turned. Who? The people who called. The ones who visited. Everyone who benefited from your father's silence. The woman set the broom against the wall. They'll offer you wealth to forget. Or burden to remember. What did he choose? The woman walked to the gate. He tried to choose both. That's why the house is full of things that don't balance. The stone was heavier than it looked. Yuna knelt in the courtyard, fingers wedged beneath the hearthstone that marked the traditional cooking area. The workers had mentioned it days ago. The stone sat unevenly, as if something beneath had shifted. She had ignored it then. Not now. She lifted. The stone tilted. Beneath it, wrapped in the same oiled cloth as the ledgers, was a single envelope. Not sealed. Not hidden well enough to stay secret forever. Hidden just enough to be found by someone looking. Yuna opened it. Inside, a deed. Official. Stamped. Dated 9 years prior. The property transfer was complete. Legal. Witnessed by a notary whose signature she did not recognize. Her father's name appeared as the original owner. The recipient was listed clearly. Moon Okeja. Yuna read it twice. Then a third time. The house did not belong to her. It never had. She stood slowly, deed in hand, and walked to the gate. The woman was there. Always there. Yuna held up the document. You own this house. The woman glanced at it without surprise. I know. Then why didn't you say anything? You never asked who owned it. You only claimed you did. Yuna felt heat rise in her chest. Not anger. Something closer to disorientation. The lawyer said it was transferred to an unknown name. He didn't mention you. The name on that deed no longer exists in any registry. I made sure of it. Why? The woman stood. Because ownership on paper means nothing if the wrong people know about it. Yuna looked at the deed again. The signature, Mu no Keija, was clear, confident, written by someone who understood exactly what she was accepting. He gave you the house, Yuna said. He gave me the responsibility of it. That's the same thing. The woman shook her head. Ownership is power. Responsibility is debt. Yuna folded the deed carefully. Why would he do this? Because he knew what would happen after he died. People would come. They would want proof, evidence, closure. The woman walked to the persimmon tree. If the house belonged to you, they would take it apart. If it belonged to no one they could find, they would leave it alone. But it belongs to you, and I am no one they can leverage. Yuna sat on the courtyard bench. The workers continued inside, oblivious. Hammers, voices, the sound of repair. You could sell it, Yuna said. Make yourself wealthy. The woman smiled faintly. To whom? The people who want it destroyed? The ones who want it preserved as a monument? Either way, the house loses. So you keep it. I keep it closed. Yuna studied the woman. Age had carved lines into her face, but her posture remained straight, unbowed. How did you meet him? Yuna asked. The woman sat beside her. I came to Korea in 1988. I was young, stupid, looking for work that didn't ask questions. She paused. Your father hired me to clean a house in Busan. Not this one. A house that doesn't exist anymore. What happened to it? It burned. But not before I learned what kind of man he was. And what kind was that? The woman looked at the house. The kind who built walls to protect people from himself. A car approached. Not the black sedan. A taxi. It stopped in front of the house. A man stepped out. Older. Thin. Dressed in clothes that had once been expensive but had faded into something merely respectable. He paid the driver and walked to the gate. The woman stood immediately. The man stopped when he saw her. I was told the house was being opened. You were told wrong, the woman said. The man's gaze shifted to Yuna. You're the daughter. Yuna did not stand. Who are you? The man reached into his coat. The woman's hand moved to her pocket. He pulled out a photograph. Old. Creased. He held it up. I came to retrieve something your father kept for me. Yuna walked to the gate. The photograph showed two men standing in front of a different building. One was younger. The other she recognized. Her father. Decades ago. What did he keep? Yuna asked. The man lowered the photograph. A watch. Gold. Engraved. It belonged to my brother. Yuna felt the ground shift slightly. Your brother's name? Park Min-suk. The same name from the shelf below. June 1991. Busan. Your brother is dead, Yuna said. The man nodded. I know. Your father told me he would keep the watch safe until I was ready to claim it. Why now? Because I'm dying. And I want to be buried with it. The woman spoke quietly. You were told to never come back. The man looked at her. I was told many things. But a promise is a promise. Yuna glanced at the woman. The woman's expression was unreadable. Wait here, Yuna said. She descended into the hidden room. Found the watch. Gold. Engraved on the back. Min-suk. Forever. She climbed back up and walked to the gate. The man's eyes filled when he saw it. Yuna handed it to him. He kept it safe. The man held the watch carefully. Thank you. He turned and walked back to the road. No taxi waited. He walked toward the village center, watch clutched in his hand. The woman watched him go. That's the first. The first what? The first person to come for what your father promised to return. Yuna looked at the deed still in her hand. How many more are there? I don't know. He never told me. That night, Yuna could not sleep. She returned to the house alone. Stood in the courtyard under stars that felt closer here than in Seoul. The woman appeared from the shadows. Not startling. Simply present. Why did he give you the house? Yuna asked. The woman sat on the bench. Because I was the only person who refused to forget what he wanted erased. That doesn't make you a keeper. That makes you a witness. Same thing in the end. Yuna sat beside her. Did you love him? The woman was quiet for a long time. I loved what he could have been. That was enough to stay. They arrived in 3 cars this time. No horns. No sirens. Just the sound of engines cutting off in sequence. Yuna stood in the courtyard as 6 men emerged. The 2 from before, the older man with silver hair, the younger with sharp eyes, and 4 others she did not recognize. The woman was already at the gate. Broom in hand. Positioned. The older man approached first. Miss Seo, we hoped you would reconsider. Yuna did not move from the center of the courtyard. There's nothing to reconsider. One of the new men stepped forward. Stockier. Hands scarred. The house has value beyond what you understand. Then explain it. The man glanced at the older one. Permission. The older man nodded slightly. Your father used this place to broker agreements. Not contracts. Truces. The stocky man gestured at the house. People came here when violence was the only language left. Your father translated it into something else. Peace. Yuna asked. Postponement. The younger man from before spoke. Which means debts are still owed. Agreements still pending. And this house is the only record that certain conversations happened at all. Yuna crossed her arms. So you want it destroyed. We want it controlled. The woman's voice cut through. It's already controlled. All eyes turned to her. The older man smiled without warmth. You've guarded it well, Okeja. But you're not family. You have no legal standing. The woman did not move. I have the deed. Silence. The stocky man's expression darkened. That's not possible. It's recorded. Legal. Transferred 9 years ago. The woman's tone remained steady. You can check. The younger man pulled out his phone. Made a call. Spoke quietly. Listened. He lowered the phone slowly. It's true. The older man's jaw tightened. Then we negotiate with you. No. The single word hung in the air. The stocky man stepped closer to the gate. You don't understand what you're protecting. The woman met his gaze. I understand better than you want me to. One of the other men, silent until now, spoke. This house should burn. The woman smiled faintly. It already did. Long ago. The stocky man frowned. What? 1997. A fire started in the main room. Burned for 3 hours. The woman tilted her head slightly. The village thought the house would collapse. It didn't. Yuna looked at the woman. This was the first she had heard of it. The structure held, the woman continued. The walls remained. Everything inside turned to ash. Except what was hidden below. The older man's expression shifted. No surprise. Recognition. He rebuilt it, the woman said. Exactly as it was. Every beam. Every tile. As if the fire never happened. She paused. But the fire taught him something. That destruction doesn't erase. It just reorganizes. The younger man stepped back toward the cars. We're wasting time. The older man raised a hand. Not yet. He looked at Yuna. You have influence. Resources. You could resolve this quietly. Resolve what? The uncertainty your father left behind. Yuna walked to the gate. Stood beside the woman. He left behind a record. Not uncertainty. Records can be misinterpreted. Then let them be. The stocky man's hands curled into fists. You're protecting ghosts. The woman spoke softly. Better than forgetting them. The older man studied both of them. Then nodded to the others. They returned to the cars. Doors closed. Engines started. Before leaving, the older man lowered his window. This isn't finished. It never was. the woman replied. The cars drove away. Slow. Deliberate. A reminder that the departure was temporary. Yuna exhaled. She had not realized she was holding her breath. They'll come back, the woman said. I know. With more people. Or different tactics. I know. The woman looked at her. Why are you still here? Yuna did not answer immediately. She walked to the persimmon tree. Touched the bark. Rough. Solid. Because leaving would mean they were right, she said finally. That the house is just property. That my father was just a criminal. That everything here can be reduced to transactions. The woman set the broom against the wall. And you don't believe that? I don't know what I believe yet. Yuna turned. But I know what I saw in the room below. Those items weren't trophies. They were apologies he couldn't deliver. The woman walked to the bench. Sat slowly. Age showing for the first time. Your father once told me something, she said. He said the worst part of power wasn't using it. It was living with what you used it for after. Did he regret it? He regretted not finishing. That night, a small fire started near the river. Controlled. Contained. Too deliberate to be accidental. Yuna watched from the guesthouse window as villagers gathered. Not panicking. Prepared. They extinguished it within minutes. No damage. No casualties. Just a message. When Yuna returned to the house the next morning, she found something on the courtyard table. A single match. Unburned. The woman was already there. They're showing you what they can do. Without doing it. For now. Yuna picked up the match. Ordinary. Could have come from anywhere. What happens if I leave? She asked. The woman considered. The house stays. I stay. And eventually, someone else tries to claim it. And if I stay? Then you become responsible for what happens next. Yuna pocketed the match. I need to see the rest. The rest of what? Everything my father hid. The woman stood. Then we start in the room you haven't found yet. The second hidden door was in the ceiling. Yuna had walked beneath it a dozen times without noticing. A panel in the rafters of the back room, slightly darker than the wood around it. Accessible only by ladder. The woman brought the ladder from the storage shed. Old. Wooden. Each rung was worn smooth by decades of use. He put this here 5 years before he died, the woman said. Never told me what was inside. Yuna climbed carefully. The panel lifted away easily, revealing a small space. Not a room. A cavity between the roof and the ceiling. Inside, a metal box. Smaller than the one beneath the floor. No lock. Just a latch. She lifted it down. The woman stepped back. This one is yours to open alone. Yuna carried the box to the courtyard. Set it on the table under the persimmon tree. Her hands hesitated on the latch. She opened it. Inside, a single envelope. Her name was written on the front in her father's handwriting. No date. No return address. And beneath the envelope, a key. Small. Brass. Attached to a tag marked only with numbers. 1247. Yuna opened the envelope. The letter was handwritten. 2 pages. The ink had faded slightly but remained legible. She read, Yuna, if you are reading this, I failed to finish. I do not apologize. Apologies are for people who regret their choices. I regret only what I could not complete. The house was never meant to protect me. It was built to protect you from becoming me. Every object in the room below represents a decision I made. Some were necessary. Others were convenient. A few were unavoidable. None was innocent. I kept them because memory is the only currency that cannot be devalued by time or distance. Money corrupts. Power dissipates. But remembering who you harmed, that remains constant. You will be offered choices I once faced. Wealth in exchange for silence. Influence in exchange for forgetting. Position in exchange for pretending the past dissolved cleanly. Do not accept any of them. The moment you trade memory for comfort, You become what I spent 30 years trying not to be. The key in this box opens a deposit box in Andong. The number is on the tag. Inside that box is something I could not keep here. Something too dangerous to hide and too valuable to destroy. What you do with it will determine whether this house closes as a confession or a monument. I built walls. You must decide whether to maintain them or let them fall. I did not teach you how to live morally. I taught you how to survive efficiently. The difference between those two things is the distance between who I was and who you could be. Do not waste it. Yuna folded the letter carefully. Her hands were steady. The woman had not moved from her position by the gate. He left instructions, Yuna said. He always did. Yuna held up the key. There's more. In Andong. The woman nodded slowly. Then that's where you go next. That afternoon, Yuna drove to Andong alone. The city was larger than Haho but still carried the weight of tradition. Banks sat between Hanok-style buildings. Modernity layered over history without erasing it. She found the bank listed on the deposit box contract. A clerk led her to the vault. Box 1247. The key fits perfectly. Inside, a USB drive, a small notebook, and a photograph. The photograph showed her father with a group of men, all younger, standing in front of a building she did not recognize. On the back, written in faded ink, Seoul, 1983, before everything. She pocketed the photograph and took the USB drive and notebook. In her car, she opened the notebook first. It was a journal, not a ledger. Personal entries written in her father's hand. Some dated, others not. She flipped to a random page. March 12, 1991. Moon Okeja asked me today why I keep the house in Haho instead of selling it. I told her it was strategic. A place removed from Seoul. Neutral ground. She didn't believe me. She's right not to. The house is a penance disguised as property. Every time I return there, I remember who I was before I learned how to stop being seen. I told her I would transfer ownership to her eventually. She refused. Said responsibility without power is just a burden. I told her the burden is the point. Yuna skipped ahead. August 3, 1998. The fire was deliberate. Someone wanted to send a message. They succeeded. But they underestimated how much I need that house to remain standing. I rebuilt it exactly as it was. Every detail. Every beam. Not because I'm sentimental. Because consistency is the only defense against revisionism. If the house changes, the story changes. If the story changes, the truth becomes negotiable. I will not allow that. She turned to the final entry. January 8, 2016. Yuna turned 30 today. I did not call. I have given her everything except honesty. She believes I built an empire. She does not know I built a labyrinth designed to collapse the moment I stop maintaining it. The USB drive contains the names of everyone I protected. Everyone I moved. Everyone I hid when hiding was the only option. Some are still alive. Some are not. All of them are owed something I cannot deliver. If she finds this, she will have to choose. Forgive me and forget them. Or remember them and finish what I could not. I hope she chooses the latter. But I will not blame her if she chooses the former. Yuna closed the notebook. She plugged the USB drive into her laptop. It contained a single encrypted file. No password prompt. Just a message. The password is the name of the house that burned. Yuna stared at the screen. She did not know the name of the house in Busan. The one that had burned. The one her father had rebuilt in Haho. She called the woman. What was the house called? Yuna asked. The one in Busan. Before it burned. The woman was silent for a moment. He never named it officially. What did people call it? Yunshinchio. Refuge. Yuna typed the word. The file unlocked. Inside, a spreadsheet. Hundreds of rows. Names. Dates. Locations. Current status is known. Some entries were marked deceased, others relocated, a few unknown, and at the bottom, a separate tab labeled pending returns. Yuna opened it. 43 names. Items are listed beside each, cross-referenced with the shelves below the house. Her father had documented everyone, every object, every unfinished obligation. She closed the laptop, drove back to Haho in silence. The woman was waiting at the gate. Yuna handed her the notebook. He wrote about you. The woman took it but did not open it. What did he say? That you were the only person who refused to let him forget. The woman smiled faintly. He was wrong. I was the only person he allowed to remember. That night, Yuna sat in the courtyard. The stars above were clear. The village is quiet. She thought about the choices her father had outlined. Wealth, silence, comfort, or memory, responsibility, completion. Seoul felt further away than the distance allowed. The house felt closer than ownership implied. And somewhere between the two, a decision waited. Not tonight, but soon. The phone calls stopped. Not gradually, abruptly. Yuna noticed on the fourth day. No unknown numbers. No formal voices requesting her return. No thinly veiled threats wrapped in concern. Just silence. The kind that preceded movement. She stood in the courtyard, watching workers complete the final repairs. The roof was sound. The walls are reinforced. The floors leveled. The house looked as it must have before the fire. Before the decades of concealment. Before her father turned it into something other than a shelter. One of the workers approached. We're finished, Miss Seo. Yuna nodded. Thank you. Will you be staying? She did not answer immediately. I haven't decided. The workers packed their tools, loaded the truck, drove away without ceremony. The woman walked through the house slowly, testing doors, running her hand along the walls, checking that everything is held. It's ready, she said finally. For what? The woman looked at her. For whatever you decide it should be. That afternoon, Yuna made 3 calls. The first was to her father's lawyer. Cancel the sale of the Seoul properties. Freeze all pending transactions. The lawyer hesitated. For how long? Until I say otherwise. The second call to the company board. I'm delegating operational authority. Appoint an interim committee. I'll review quarterly. A board member objected. This is highly irregular. Irregular isn't illegal. The third call was to a number she found in her father's journal. A contact listed only as Giangrisa, the cleaner. A woman answered. Voice flat. Professional. I need information, Yuna said. About everyone who visited my father's house in the last 10 years. A pause. That's a long list. I have time. Why? Because I'm deciding whether to continue his work or end it. The woman on the other end was quiet for a moment. Your father paid me to forget. You're asking me to remember. I'm asking you to finish. That will cost more than money. I know. The call ended. That evening, the village held another ceremony. Not Jessa this time. Something else. A harvest blessing. Gratitude for what the land provided. Yuna watched from the house. The woman was there again. Participating. Kneeling. Offering. When the ceremony ended, the woman returned. You're preparing to leave, she said. Yuna shook her head. I'm preparing to decide. Those are the same thing here. They sat on the courtyard bench. The air was cooling. Autumn is settling in. What happens if I open the house? Yuna asked. People will come. Some for closure. Some for revenge. Some just to see if the stories were true. And if I keep it closed, it stays as it is. A memory that doesn't fade. A debt that doesn't resolve. Yuna looked at the woman. What would you do? The woman smiled. I already made my choice. I stayed. That's not the same as opening or closing. It's the same. Staying is refusing to let it become either a monument or a ruin. It remains what it is, unfinished. The next morning, Yuna walked through the house one final time. She descended into the hidden room, looked at the shelves. The objects her father could not return. 43 items. 43 obligations. Some of the people listed were dead. But not all. She climbed back up. Stood in the main room where her father must have stood countless times. Making decisions. Brokering agreements. Translating violence into postponement. The woman appeared in the doorway. You're thinking too much. I'm thinking the right amount. No. You're thinking like him. The woman stepped inside. He thought if he organized guilt precisely enough, it would count as resolution. It didn't. It just made the guilt more permanent. Yuna turned. Then what should I do? Stop trying to finish what he started. Start something he couldn't. That evening, a car approached. Not black. Not sedan. A small van. Battered. Practical. A woman stepped out. Elderly. Carrying a bag. She walked to the gate without hesitation. The woman, Moon Okeja, stood. Recognized her immediately. Sunhee. The elderly woman nodded. I heard the house was being opened. Okeja glanced at Yuna. It's not. Then why are you here? Sunhee asked Yuna. Yuna stepped forward. Who are you? My name is Choi Sunhee. Your father kept something for me. A bracelet. Jade. I gave it to him 30 years ago when I needed to disappear. Yuna recognized the name. March 1998. Incheon. Why now? Yuna asked. Because I'm not hiding anymore. Sunhee set down her bag. And I want to remember who I was before I had to run. Yuna looked at Okeja. Okeja nodded slightly. Yuna descended into the hidden room. Found the bracelet. Brought it up. Sunhee's eyes filled when she saw it. She did not take it immediately. Just looked. He told me he'd keep it safe until I was ready, Sunhee said softly. I didn't believe him. I thought he'd sell it. Or lose it. Or forget. He didn't forget, Yuna said. Sunhee took the bracelet. Held it carefully. Thank you. She turned to leave. Stopped. Looked back at Yuna. Your father wasn't kind. But he kept his word when it mattered. She paused. That's more than most people manage. Sunhee left. The van drove away. Okeja spoke quietly. That's the second one. How many more will come? As many as hear the house is listening again. Yuna sat on the bench. Watched the sun lower over the river. I'm not going back to Seoul, she said. Okeja did not seem surprised. Then what are you going to do? I'm going to contact everyone on the list. Tell them what's here. Give them the choice to come or not. And after that, Yuna stood. Walked to the gate. Looked out at the village. After that, I'll decide if the house stays open or closes forever. Okeja locked the gate. Not to keep people out. Just to mark the day's end. Your father built this place to hide, Okeja said. You're turning it into something else. What? A return. That night, Yuna sent the first message. An email to a name on the list. Brief. Factual. Your item is here. Come when you're ready. She did not expect a response. It came within an hour. I'll be there in 3 days. She sent the second message. Then the third. By midnight, she had contacted 15 people. 7 responded immediately. 3 said they were coming. 4 said they had moved on. The rest did not reply. Yuna closed her laptop. Walked to the window. The village was dark. Silent. But something had shifted. The house was no longer waiting. It was ready. And somewhere beyond the river, people who had spent decades forgetting were beginning to remember. The gate remained locked. Not yet open. but no longer closed.